Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 56 of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights. We're taking a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and compare them to the real life fossil counterparts. So initially I wasn't expecting to make part 56 until after the prehistoric marine species pack came out, because the species I had for that pack were, that edition were kind of only 4 of them, so that's like a couple of Master mods, and I think the bull shark was part of that as well. So those will definitely be coming in part 57 after the pack. But Hawk Owl 1215, one of my favorite modders, as very similar to the Stegosaur accurate pack or cosmetic pack they made. We've got here the Ceratopsians cosmetic pack. So this pretty much remakes all the Ceratopsians in the game, as gives them a new cosmetic that makes them much more scientifically accurate and gives a bunch of new colors and everything. And I have to say, I was actually really liking this one. I'm really blown away by it. So we're going to be starting off, of course, alphabetical order, as we kind of have done recently with these ones, like the feather cosmetic or that. We're going to be starting off with everyone's favorite cool Chasmosaur. We've got Chasmosaurus. So look at this wonderful dude. Oh, I'm in love with this guy. This one is so awesome. Let's have a look at this one, because this one reminds me most of like a Gemsbok. I don't know why, it vaguely reminds me of a Gemsbok. But anyway, we've got here our really wonderful Chasmosaurus. So this has obviously been updated to fit much more accurate with realistic ceratopsid anatomy, not like the Jurassic Park one, of course. As we can see here, we've got some changes for the face here. That face has been greatly shrunken in a bit and just made to proper fit the skull that we had. It actually had quite a big nose horn and smaller brown horns compared to a lot of other Chasmosaurs, because Chasmosaurs is usually the opposite. They usually have the really big brow horns and the small nose horn, but these guys were a little different in that regard, and we can see some changes of the face there, that kind of longer face, that really big beak, and you can also see this huge frill that this Chasmosaurus had, almost like a big rectangle, like a big rectangle like that, and you can see there's would have been big holes, the fenestrae in there. Really only Triceratops was had no fenestrae, but pretty much all Ceratopsians had that fenestra there. Really cool. I really like all that, and especially you can see all the ossicones down the frill there. We can see some changes to the neck. Ceratopsians are quite famous for their big heads, but they've also got quite strong necks to carry that all around, and nice posture to hold it at as well, because they're holding it a little bit higher. Much more accurate neutral posture. We can see that quite round body they've got, of course. Ceratopsians are quite famous for having that big round body and almost got a little bit of a hump going on, as you can kind of see in this one that's got a little bit more of a basic posture. A little bit of hump going on. We can also see those legs. We can see those legs got like a little bit of a little more gracile than kind of you expect. Not the big elephant-like ones that you see in the Jurassic Park original ones. But we can also see the accurate feet. We can see the first 3 nails have digits, but the last 2 don't. So these are the perfect Ceratopsian feet. They've really nailed that one. Oh, I was going to move out to this guy. We can see here. Very round body. Also the same for the back feet here. You can see he's got the really big thighs and round body there. 4 kind of claws at the back there. Looks perfect. Really nice anatomy there, and we can see that much shorter tail. Ceratopsians are quite famous for having quite short tails, as you can see there. So it looks really wonderful. Definitely love the color pattern as well. I think that's really made it awesome. I love the bright colors of the frill and the kind of the colors on the frill as well. And the body reminds me a lot of a Gemsbok, as you can see, like the kind of stripes going down the back there and all that. But look really cool. And we're going to see some changes to the skin. We can see there's been some changes to the anatomy. You can see all the scales, and you can see some of those large kind of bosses, or I wouldn't call them bosses. I'd say they're a little bit more like feature scales coming out there. We know that from Triceratops would have feature scales like that. So it's a nice addition to put on this guy. And we do have some, I believe, some skin remains from Chasmosaurus. So quite a nice addition. Definitely a big fan. So we're gonna let them run off and do their thing. Really wonderful guys. See, this is Hawk Owl's like MO now. Really nice to see some nice accurate mods. So now these guys are out of the way, hopefully. Looks like they are about to be out of the way. Okay. Next up, we've got another cool, another ceratopsian coming up. This one's from the movies. We've got Nasutoceratops. So look at this wonderful guy. Oh, such a cutie. So let's have a look at you. So this is our Nasutoceratops. So we're going to start off with the face, of course. Very different face. You can see they've got this huge, like, ridge along the nose there, and a big fenestre or hole in the skull there that makes them look like they have an absolutely huge nose, and probably did have a big nose, maybe for like condensing air or maybe even making sounds. But yeah, really, really cool. See that big round there. They don't really have a nasal horn or a nose horn, unlike a lot of other Chasmosaurians, because I'm pretty sure they're a Chasmosaurian. Yep, I'll stick to that. Really, really cool. And you can see their wonderful kind of horns there. They're really reminiscent of like a bull. That's why they get their name. The Triceratops kind of pretty much they're called a bull. You can see they've got that going on there. Really interesting face as well. Really interesting ridge there. Got quite big eyes as well, as these guys are actually a little bit smaller than a lot of other ceratopsians, but still really, really cool. Nice big horns there. Very reminiscent of like a bull, where they get their name. Let's carry on to their neck. Nice short little neck there. Very big round bodies you can see there. These guys, like its relatives like Aviceratops, they had quite round bodies. And I like these big feature scales in there as well. Some similar changes as well to the other ones. You can see they've got still quite bulky front legs, but not quite elephantine with the feet. And obviously got the 3 digits there and the 2 digits that don't have nails, and the same big 4 on the back there. Looks really, really nice. Big round body. And you can see that shorter tail. So these guys probably had tails a little bit longer than a lot of other centris, I can't even speak right, ceratopsians, but these guys still look really, really nice regardless. Definitely a big fan. And how could I forget to mention the frill? We can see that got a very interesting frill. A lot of dinosaurs or a lot of ceratopsians, when they have their frill, it kind of splays out like that. These guys are a little bit more like rounded or a little bit convex, so it kind of fits in almost like a little round dish there, a little more oval shape there. And I love the patterns that he's given it. I like the stripes along the side there, and also the spots going along the frill there, along with you can see the fenestre in there as well. That they would be in there. Really, really cool. Definitely a big fan of this Nasutoceratops. Hakel always done a wonderful job. One thing to remember well as well, guys, you will need to have the expanded core colors installed, so you get the most out of all the patterns of these guys. Making sure you guys are aware of that. So next up, he didn't just add some new remakes, he's added a few new species. So this gives us a great opportunity to talk about different species within different genera of dinosaur. So first up in that regard, we have got the 3 species of Pachyrhinosaurus. So we're going to be starting off with the youngest species. We're going to be starting off with Pachyrhinosaurus peritorum, which is the youngest, as I mentioned. So let's have a wonderful look at this guy. So this is Pachyrhinosaurus peritorum. So the youngest species of Pachyrhinosaurus. So these guys are known from the Saint River Formation, or Saint Mary River Formation. No, that's the other species. Peritorum is actually known from the Prince Creek Formation of Alaska. So when you see all those documentaries about Pachyrhinosaurus up in the north, surviving in the Arctic with Nasutoceratops and things like that, it's most likely this species here, which is Pachyrhinosaurus peritorum. and you can kind of see, we'll explain the differences with the other species, but most of the differences you can kind of see here is in the skull. So you can see this guy actually has the largest of the kind of nasal bosses. This is like the largest extent of they get within the species. And also have these kind of two little ridges above their brow horns there. Looks really, really cool. Also got quite a big beak, as you can see going on there. And I really love the colors. I like that eye thing going on there. The like eye pattern, the kind of war paint, you could say. Really, really cool. And you can see all the change of the skull. They've also got this kind of two little ossicones coming out of the top of the frill like that, along with some along going down. So you can see that very characteristic of Pachyrhinosaurus. Then you move on to the body. You can see they've got obviously the big front legs as well. So some people, there's been some like debate whether they had them straight under them or a little bit splayed. I think more recently they've kind of considered them to be more straight up like this. So this is considered the more accurate interpretation. And you can see the 3 feet, not the three toes with nails and the 2 that don't. Very similar to like most other animals. I always say, and I don't want to keep covering it over and over again with every animal because really done a wonderful job. And you can see here the detail. I love the detail. I love the added like wrinkles and the added scales, and you can see the feature scales as well. Some ceratopsians are kind of known, especially like Triceratops that we'll get into. They're known to have like these large feature scales or clumps of scales that they have this large feature scale that almost has like a little quote unquote nipple on the end, so it kind of gives a little bit of texture. Some believe it may have been like maybe hold a quill or something like that, but I'm not sure how realistic those interpretations are. It's very speculative. But you can see also the big hips that these guys have. I think there's a little bit disjunct in the animation because of that, but we can see they got that longer tail as well. So yeah, really, really awesome. I love the colors, especially love like the bluish one. It's very, very interesting. I mean, it really has come out nicely, and I like this one as well. Definitely very, very cool. So as I mentioned, this is the youngest one, peritorum. Next up, we're going a little bit further in time. We've got Pachyrhinosaurus canadensis. So as I mentioned, now we're going a little bit further back in time. So now that we've covered, as I mentioned, Peritorum, which is from Prince Creek about 70 to 69 million years ago. It's the youngest one. Canadensis is kind of in the middle. These guys are from the lower Horseshoe Canyon Formation and the St. Mary River Formation, so quite a wide range. These guys come from about 71 to 71.5 to 71 million years ago. So 71 million years ago is kind of the best way. 71, 72 million years ago is kind of where this guy fits in. So another difference is you kind of see here, we can see that the boss is nowhere near as big and pronounced as Peritorum. We can see they're starting to maybe become a bit bigger, one of the defining characteristics as well. Also some changes to the skull there. You can see the horns on the back, they're a little bit bigger, and they've also got the ones kind of in the middle there. They've got the 2 there and the 2 ones there. That's another defining characteristic of the species as well. And then we can see the skull's not all that different. Very big, round, boxy skull with a very large beak, of course, for chopping up plants and things like that. They've also got a little bit more defined kind of ossicones down on the, I believe it's ossicones, on the frill there. It's really, really nice. Anatomy is not too different, probably based on a slightly different skeleton. A little bit more of a rounder back, a bit of a thinner neck. I'd probably make the neck a little thinner, but it's probably just the skeletal that this guy was based off. Big legs, we know, with the proper feet and everything. Big round body, big thighs, and a nice big tail. So much shorter than, of course, the other Jurassic Park dinosaurs, Ceratopsians. Yeah, really do love this kind of design. Definitely a big fan. Love the colors on this one as well. I'm going to say that a lot, but I like that. I like, especially like this one. I don't know why. I like the red with like the dark greens and like the little stripe there. Looks very, very interesting, and definitely a big fan of that. And you can see, probably not the exact right size, but really, really cool. So yeah, we're going to let this guy run off and do its thing. Then we're going to be carrying on with the oldest species of Pachyrhinosaurus, we've got here Pachyrhinosaurus lanskurai. So this is, I believe, the species that was the original base species for the one originally in game, and I mentioned it as the youngest, and I'll tell you some of the defining features that tells it apart. So here's a beautiful boy again, and another one with awesome colors. So we're going to have a look at what this makes this guy distinct. So the most obvious thing is you can kind of see this massive kind of middle, like horn in the middle of the frill there. There's a lot of ceratopsians will have like little ossicones and things and little ossicles across the frill there, and some will have some up the middle. Some will have big feature ones like Styracosaurus, as we'll get onto later. They'll have big ones going out there. But this is really weird, as it has one kind of right in the middle. It's almost like a brow horn right at the back, and it's kind of got this three-pronged look to it. So this is the easiest way to like define the species away from the other one. So it's the most obvious feature. It's got this big like three-pronged horn in the middle of its frill. It's the easiest way to tell it apart. And then you can see kind of it's got the smallest nasal boss and the smaller like ridges as well. So you can kind of see the evolution of it. You can see that decreases while the boss gets bigger. So you can see that in Landscry. And then you can see this guy basically doesn't... canadensis doesn't have one and as a medium-sized boss, and you see this guy's got a huge boss. So you can kind of see how it changes through evolution, as potentially through anagenesis. But this guy's the oldest one. So Landscry is from the Waipati Formation, and is typically found in ages between the Upper Bear Paw and the Lower Horseshoe Canyon formations, and are known to exist between 73 and 72.5 million years ago. So in the order it goes from oldest to youngest is Landscry, canadensis, and peritorum. So that's kind of how it goes. And we can see some wonderful changes there. I love the change of the eye on this guy. I love the color on this one. The brown and greens really go well together. Big horns there, big nasal boss, big beak, big nostrils as well. You can see also it's got the kind of the largest, I'd say probably the shortest frill as well, and the largest like ossicone coming out of that one. Looking really nice. Got the middle one in there. Anatomy fits a little bit more with the other one there, but we can see quite big and round there, big round body, toes, all that, But yeah, I love the color on this one. I really like the frill, and I like the bit that comes out the eye, especially the dark ones. I really like the dark colors. I think the bright colors are kind of the over-the-top ones, but I like the browns and the grays and the oranges. I think they come out really well on this guy, especially like this one. This looks to me like nearly like a realistic animal, so that's really cool. Definitely a big fan of those. So that's our 3 species done. So now we're going to be moving on to the other ones. So next up, we have got everyone's favorite tall one. Instead of having 3 horns, we've got 5-horned face. We've got the Pentaceratops. So we have Pentaceratops, which was like its own kind of little group within the Chasmosaurians. They have a few close relatives that were recently described, and you can see they're definitely a weird animal. So look at these guys. Very weird, as in they're very tall compared to a lot of the ceratopsians. Ceratopsians are generally quite squat. These guys are really tall. They have comparatively long legs and quite a bulky, tall body as well. They've also got a little bit of a hump there. It really gives it its own kind of distinct look in comparison. And really short tail as well. And you can see they're starting to really get that short tail. Big hips, as per usual. Like a very tall, lanky animal. And really do love how this guy's come along. And then we can move on to the face. So Pentaceratops has this really long kind of brow horns and a kind of skinnish skull. And it's an average size kind of nasal horn, very long, large beak and things like that. And they get the name Pentaceratops because they have the 5 horns. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 5 sometimes because they have kind of these largest ossicones going along there. And they got this very, very tall frill, and also had quite large in terms of fenestrae, very large fenestrae there, and in pretty much all ceratopsians that would have been covered in skin, believed to potentially either skin or some have suggest like keratin or scales. Well, both would technically be keratin, either scales or like a cornified sheath. That's a little bit of debate, but most evidence seems to lean between this kind of scale type look as we see going on here, and I get to see all the extra keratin added on as well. One thing as well with a lot of ceratopsian reconstructions is that they often don't put enough keratin on the horns and things, and there's been a general rule that's been based off dinosaurs such as Borealopelta, which is so well preserved, and compared with, and usually they extrapolate from the percentage of keratin to bone core compared to modern living animals as well, and Boreapelta was included as well. So it seems to be that every horn on these guys is about an extra half of keratin, so that makes dinosaurs have a lot longer horns than we kind of expect. But he looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan. Bit of a squatter face, but quite a long beak. Quite of an overbite as well. A little bit smaller eyes, but yeah, really, really nice. Love all the textures and details, and that really, really tall frill really gives it a distinct look to it. Really, really tall and interesting, and it's kind of these big horns at the back, so that's where they get their name, the Pentaceratops. So really, really cool. Another knock out of the park for Hock et al. So not et al. Hock. Hock Owl 1215. I think et al. Been reading too many papers, I think. But yeah, really, really awesome. Definitely love this guy. Next up, we've got everyone's favorite Asian one from the movie. This one probably got the biggest update because it kind of deserved it because it was really done dirty by Jurassic World, I think. But we're going to have a wonderful look at this guy. So Sinoceratops, not Sinosaurus, is a very interesting animal in terms of its evolution, since it's the only kind of late ceratopsian from Asia, which is really, really cool. And we can see some changes to the body here. We can see it doesn't have that quite weird boss, and it's got this really cool. Because of that horn, I believe it's a centrosaurine, centrosaurine ceratopsian, and we can see that kind of really cool nasal horn there and the small brow horns. Really, really round rectangular body with this big beak, and we can see the really cool distinguishing features is like the horns of the ossicones along the frill there. You can see the come up there. They all like curl up at the top, almost like gives it like a creeping, like almost like I think like the tongs, you know. I don't know what you call them, like hair clips or however. I don't really use them because my hair doesn't get long enough. But like those kind of clips, it really reminds me of that. It looks really, really nice. I definitely love the look of this guy and it's been reconstructed well. Quite a roundish, typical centrosaurine body. Quite long, bulky neck. Also, this long legs here and quite a short, stout tail. I believe this is like very much like getaway trike. You can also see the style of the reconstructions used and the skeletals used for each guy, which is quite interesting because this is very clearly getaway trike. And you can also see this is very like Scott Hartman style and things like that. And I think that really helps not only give them a distinct look to each of the animals, but also like adds a bit of accuracy to them as well and shows how different people can reconstruct them. But yeah, really, really definitely a big fan of this guy. I love Sinoceratops. And it's nice to see that it doesn't have those big gaping holes. So, as we know, the one in the movies has the big gaping holes in its fenestrae, which is there, but in life they would have been covered by skin and flesh. So you don't have two gaping holes in your kind of frill there. But yeah, really, really nice. And definitely love the colors. Another nice one that's got nice colors and patterns. Definitely very interesting. So yeah, we're going to let you run off and do your thing, of course. And we're on to our last few animals here. So next up, we have got Styracosaurus. So here we've got pretty much everyone's favorite centrosaurian, the most famous. We got Styracosaurus. So really, really awesome. Let's have a look at you. You remind me the most of the JPOG one, so we'll have a look at you. It is pretty much a JPOG colors, actually. Really funny how that works out like that. So, yeah, you can see it's got this quite skinny skull in comparison, but still a really nice big beak. These guys were probably a little bit more selective browsers. And then we can also see here we've got that really long nasal horn, and to compensate for that, we've also got these kind of the three, like 8 or so horns or ossicles on the top of the frill there. You can see they've got kind of that huge look to them. It really gives them the distinctive look. And we have enough specimens of Styracosaurus that we can see that there's some that have grown extra ones and things like that. It would really vary a lot within the individuals. It's just that the kind of individual we always use is kind of, your perfect one. But animals don't come out exactly the same. They each have individual variation, and some will have an extra horn. Some might be a little bit smaller. Some might break as a baby or things like that. So it really shows how these crests can really be a signaling kind of feature, and these frills as well for both sexual selection and species selection, and like even for social things and things like that. So yeah, really, really cool. Nice skinny skull. Skull. I can't even speak today. And then we've also got here they don't really have the kind of brow horns as a lot of the Chasmosaurians do. These guys are pretty much nose horns, nothing else. And then we can see that quite round body there. Obviously, the all correct feet and everything, and also that quite a bit shorter tail. I'm going to say I really like this color there. So this pretty much looks like the JPOG one to me, with a little bit of red on the frill there and the orange there. Really good skin there. This one's also quite nice too. Definitely a big fan, and like the changes in the pattern, things like that. Like that, Hawk Owl isn't just really just slapped a new animal, slapped anything on it. He's changed the textures and added new things, and really made the textures pop to really make them all look quite distinct from each other. So I'm definitely a big fan of that. So that's a Styracosaurus. And let you run off do your thing, of course. And next up, we have got everyone's favorite big bad relative of Triceratops. Even some people consider it to be Triceratops. We've got Torosaurus. So you can see this guy is very similar to Triceratops, and actually lived in a lot of the same environments as Triceratops, but is typically much more rare in its ecosystem. The main way you can tell these guys apart is these guys really do have holes in their frill there. They've got the largest skull of any land animal, and they've got quite huge, big round frills with a big hole in the big fenestrae in the frill, while Triceratops has kind of just a big bony shield. While these guys kind of had the bigger, wider ones, and they've also got some kind of little ossicones down it as well. You can kind of see the difference there. You definitely see the difference. They've also got much thinner horns, as you kind of see there, and much more straight. They also had a little bit more of a sharper nose horn and a little bit of rounder features. Definitely very similar looking, though. You can see that big beak there as well, and also big round neck there. Also quite a round body as most of the time, and then anatomy is generally still quite similar to other ceratopsians. One thing as well is these guys are sometimes considered, it's pretty much considered defunct now, but they were considered an adult. Triceratops is kind of, you have them grow up and then the fenestrae opens, and that kind of is the breeding adult, though Torosaurus is technically smaller than Triceratops, and we do have an entire growth series from basically babies to adults for Triceratops, and these guys don't really fit into it. But these guys can be considered maybe their own species of Triceratops. Depends how you want to split the genera, things like that. But generally, most consider this guy Torosaurus. But yeah, really, really cool. Nice to see this guy here as well. Definitely a big fan. And I think it's really underrated because it's not very common in a lot of ecosystems. You find them more in the south, and very rare in most places. You could almost compare it to the black rhino and white rhino, like the different ecologies. One's a little bit rarer, though that's due to people, and then the other one's more common. Maybe just because of biases, they may have actually been genuinely less common in the ecosystem. These guys may have been maybe preferred more inland areas, while Triceratops preferred more coastal, which is more chance of getting preserved. Things like that. It really is interesting to think about how these animals may have like niche partitioned and preferred different habitats. But it's really hard to know because we don't really have the sample size. But still really, really cool to have this guy represented, and definitely love the skins. Oh, I love this one as well, like this grayish one. Oh, that looks so amazing. Definitely a big fan. Really, really cool. So that's our Torosaurus done. And then we've also got the two species of everyone's favorite big bad ceratopsian, the one that fights T-Rex all the time. We have got Triceratops. So our first one is the young. We're going again from youngest to oldest. We've got the youngest species of Triceratops that pretty much lived right before the age and even probably lived to see the big meteor hit the Earth and kill the dinosaurs. We've got Triceratops porosus. Sorry, we had a bit of an intruder, but that's okay. Really has still come out nicely though, and this obviously this is a mod, so there are some bugs, and you should expect them. But we can see here this is our Triceratops porosus. So the main way you can tell like Triceratops porosus and horridus apart is the kind of skull. These guys have the much larger nose horn, I believe. Yeah, they have a much larger nose horn, and they typically also have a much more skinny skull. It's like a lot more leaner. These guys may have been like a little bit more selective browsers. And there's lots of variation with people often say these guys have the curly horns, but often that's just variation within individuals rather than species. So you can have two different species, horridus individuals that pretty much have curly and then straight horns and things like that. A lot more variation in those guys. You can also see these guys also the youngest, so they were around right at the end of the Cretaceous. So when the meteor hit, these guys were around. And then we can see some change of the face there. We can see some of the major changes. Go rid of all that really yucky kind of skin and gross elephantine feet and long tail of the Jurassic Park one and the Jurassic World one. You can see the nice anatomy there. Quite round frill there. As I mentioned, these guys had a completely bony closed-in fenestrae. So T-Rex couldn't bite through it, or well, couldn't bite a hole in it if there wasn't only hole in there. You can see that in the really cool horns as well. Nice and big round body. This is definitely the most well-known of the ceratopsians. Big round body as well. Big feet, all that extra stuff I mentioned in the shorter tail. I like that the added the feature scales on these guys as well. We have some pretty extensive preserved remains of Triceratops, as I mentioned, and they show that they had kind of very large hexagonal scales and then like large ones along on the bottom, very similar to like crocodile scales on their belly. But they also had these large scales that had a little nipple, you could say, on them. People say they could have been an anchor for, of course, like a potentially a quill or some other structure, but most people just say they were just little bumps and to give them and gave a little bit of texture, and you can kind of see that's represented here. And I think it's really, really cool that we got this here, and we've got some really awesome colors as well. This one looks quite nice. Quite like this one. This orangey one really fits well. Quite like the kind of more earthy tone ones. This one looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan. So this is porosus. Let them run off and do their thing. Hopefully we don't have any more interruptions from these guys. Though I imagine that might be too much to ask, so we're going to let them run off and do their thing as they all herd off together. Let's see if we can wait. I'm not going to release them when everyone's there. Don't know why they're all hanging around here. So let's see if we can fast forward further. Let's get them out of here. Come on, get out of here. Okay, so I think this will be the best chance we'll have to release them. So let's see our Triceratops horridus. I have to say, I really love the pattern on this guy. I'd say this is the best pattern. You can see the big scales. This is the one that makes it the most obvious, as you can see those big scales. with the big little bump on them, or the nipple, people say. But yeah, this is the one that really illustrates it the best. But to go over the differences with horridus, so this is the later one, so no, well, yeah, older one. So this guy came from like right at the beginning of Hell Creek, so about 68 million years ago or so. And you can see some of the changes here. They've got a little bit, you can see the big brow horns there. You can see they've got a much bulkier skull as well. They often have larger ossicones on their frill. And you can also see they've got the smaller nose horn there. That's the most obvious difference between these guys. And you can see those big nipple scales, as I keep mentioning. I love that these managed to add some more accurate like textures and details on it as well. So I'm really, really happy that's a thing as well. Big feet, you know, with the really cool nails, and you do your nails, I don't know. Really, really cool. Big thighs there and the shorter tail. So this is pretty much spot on to the anatomy of Triceratops horridus. So really, really cool. Definitely a big fan of that. So I know this one's been a little bit lackluster, but that's okay. I really like talking about all the different aspects of these animals that we get to talk about, and cover like a kind of a group of dinosaurs per each like video. So it's really nice Hockowl gave us this wonderful mod here, and definitely loved seeing all the color changes and the edits to the different species, things like that. Really makes a pack like this worth it. And I really enjoyed covering it right before the Prehistoric Marine Species pack, so I was able to cover this and give you a little bit of content before then, and some JWE stuff to hold you over. So yeah, so Hockowl, I keep saying that, Hockowl1215, really done a wonderful job. Definitely a big fan of this pack. I really hope you do like either ankylosaurs or sauropods next for your cosmetic pack. I really love to see some more accurate like ankylosaurs or sauropods. I think that'd be so awesome, as I feel like they're a little bit neglected. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.